a little bit different than him. So my style changed from my college years through my minor league years, because Ted Williams stood with his bat straight up and down, and I started hitting like that because I thought, well, if Ted Williams can do it, I can do it. I couldn't do that. So I had to find my style, and it took me a while. But I developed a style that was good for me. It wasn't a power stroke. I didn't think about launch angle. All I thought about was hitting the ball hard. That's all I thought about. Hit it as hard as you can.
Well, talking about lessons and instruction, I was a golf pro for years. You talked about your sport growing up was golf. Remember back in the day, there's Arnold Palmer, there's Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah.
You could stand at the back of the range and tell who was swinging a golf club. Today, try and do that? No. Everything has become mechanical, and everybody's supposed to swing the same way. You're right. Whenever I taught golf, I always wanted my students to feel comfortable swinging, not trying to swing a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of players take their top hand off too early. I like players. They ought to go back and look at old Ted Williams videos if they can, because Ted Williams swung the bat all the way around. His top hand was on the bat all the way around. I'm not saying that there's not a time to take the top hand off, but a lot of young players I see, they don't learn how to hit with two hands because they're copying this big leaguer that hits with one hand because they take that top hand off. Try to swing the bat all the way around for a while and see how it feels. That's what when I teach hitting, if I do, I make sure that my hitters keep the top hand on their bat all the way around so they can understand what it's like to do that. And then that's my speech on hitting.
Yeah, I was like, because like you were saying, it's one of the most difficult things to do, and hitting is something we could probably talk about all day long because there's so many different variables that go into that. So it's a really cool subject.
A lot of people ask me who was the toughest pitcher that I hit. And I had so many tough pitchers, Roger Clemens, Nolan Ryan, Ron Guidry. But if it wasn't for left-handers, I wouldn't be sitting here. I didn't mind hitting off left-handers. My career batting average is much higher, and the simple reason is I get to see the ball out of the hand a little bit easier.
Oh yeah,
and that's basically, and the ball's coming toward me and in toward me instead of away from me. So that's the reason I hit better off lefties, because I can see the ball better.
There's right now, a lot of people are talking about this Astros, the cheating scandal, and, as a hitter, how much easier is it standing up there when you know what's coming?
It's so funny. Obviously, most baseball fans know, they think what happened. What really happened has not been public yet. I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't really care anymore to know. I just know that it happened because nobody's really saying no, it didn't. They're not denying it. So, but I remember playing a game in Oakland one time, and my old teammate Ed Farmer was pitching for Oakland after we played for the White Sox together, and on the mound he yelled at me. He goes, Pryor, fastball. He's telling me what he's throwing. He threw a fastball right down the middle, and he stands out in the mound. And he goes, I told you fastball. He's telling me this from the mound. So I'm thinking that if I had the choice of somebody in the dugout let me know what pitch was coming, or that, like back when I played, guys would say, "Oh, the pitcher is tipping his pitches. You watch him how he's holding the ball out there. Watch him how he takes it into his glove." Because a lot of pitchers will tip their pitches, and we would pick up on that. Mm-hmm. But me personally, I really didn't want to know anything because hitting is so hard. You only have a certain split second to make that decision, and if you're thinking that it's a certain pitch, you might do something different, Yeah. So if I was going to have it consistently, maybe. But unless I could have it consistently, I didn't want any part of it. I didn't care what pitchers were tipping their pitches because I wanted to react as I normally did and swing like I normally did without any help from anybody. So I'm sad that it happened, but we'll get over it. And and players will go up there with cork bats again. I played with I can't name their names, but I played with guys that corked their bats, and I played with pitchers that spit on and cut the ball. They're going to cut the ball as soon as they start playing in the big leagues or Major League Baseball this season. Pitchers are going to start cheating again. They're going to put pine tar in their glove, and that's against the rules. Vita Blue had a whole can of pine tar in his glove, and it was amazing how much pine tar he had. But and I think that it's illegal now,
Yeah.
So
it is,
I'm just, but I'm not in defense of anybody that is tipping pitches from the dugout to home plate. But I'll just say this. When they started letting cameras in the dugout, that invited all this stuff happening. Back when I played, there weren't any cameras in the dugout. Well, they let the cameras in the dugout. They let the cameras behind the dugout, and people finally got the bright idea, oh, we know what pitch is coming. Let's work out how we can tell the hitter. It's only because of cameras. I think they ought to do away with cameras in the dugout and also right next to the dugout. Maybe they have. I don't know. But I don't think that I think that they should have made everybody play on the same playing field. But the cameras in the dugout now, guys are like waving to the camera in the dugout. When I played, there was no camera to wave to.
Yeah.
We kept it all right there. That was our inner sanctum. But they opened it up because the fans like it, I think, and they even interview managers now during the games.
Yeah, during the game. Yeah.
They force the manager. I guarantee you, they force the manager because the managers don't want to really talk to anybody.
No, that's an MLB deal.
And they, I know, and they talk to them. So the general manager says, "Hey, in the fifth inning, you're going to be interviewing for about 45 seconds or a minute." The manager would rather not do that, but they do a pretty good job at it. And then in the All-Star game, they put a microphone on the right fielder for the Dodgers, Bellinger. He's talking to the All-Star people, and maybe that's coming. But I hope it's not coming because I think they need to let the game stay as old school as possible. And sometimes I think they're taking old school out of the game.
Back then, they wanted to put a camera in George Toma's pocket to see if he was growing grass, right?
George Toma. Wow.
Yeah, it's just they want more and more access.
Yeah.
The fans do, and I mean I get it, but at the same time, I'm glad you mentioned, as a ball player, like that was kind of your guys' area. Was the dugout and the clubhouse, for you guys to bond and those things. And if it takes a little bit of that out of it when you have cameras there, because I don't care who you are, you're going to act a little different when you're on camera than when you're off.
One of the stories in my book was about watching Gaylord Perry load up on the bench. And in my story, I talk about how I was sitting next to him, watching him, and they had cameras back in those days. Gaylord couldn't have done that because they would have caught him on the camera. But the only reason Gaylord did it was I was the only guy in the world that could watch him. I was sitting, like 10 feet from him. I was sitting here watching what he was doing, and I was like, oh my gosh, Gaylord Perry. I'm watching him load up.
Yeah.
But had there been cameras, he would have had to go inside the clubhouse to do it.
Yeah. And then also, we don't want to give away too much, but in your book you do talk about the Pine Tar game, right?
Yeah,
with
Pine
George
Tar
Brett.
game. Yeah.
Okay.
I tell a story about the Pine Tar game. I tell a story about disco demolition in the book. But the Pine Tar game was special to me in a weird way because I was out in the bullpen the only time in my career ever, little league, cold league, whatever, major leagues. I was never in the bullpen. This game, Dick Hauser told me that he needed me to go warm up a left-hander in the bullpen because both of our catchers were in the game. So here I go running across left field there in Yankee Stadium, and I'm saying, wow, this is exciting. I've never done this before. And I walk through the monuments out there, and I'm out there in the bullpen, and I got a mask on, and Don Hood, the left-hander's bouncing the ball in the dirt, and I'm thinking, I can't wait to get out of here. I hate this. But that's when I was in the bullpen when George hit the home run, and I tell the story about, what happened afterwards and going back in. And I finished the game at third base, going back in. Tell the story about my anxiety about playing in the Pine Tar game 6 weeks later when we finished.
Yeah.
And it was something that will never be duplicated again. They'll never have to go back and finish a game because of something like that. But it was nice to be part of it. But I will say this, that after the game, I finally got to my locker after like an hour because all the reporters were wanting to talk to George. And he's got his head down. I say, hey, what's wrong with you? He goes, I just lost a home run. We just lost the game. What do you mean? I said, George, you're going to get so much money from a Pine Tar company to endorse their Pine Tar. You're going to get a huge endorsement contract.
Yeah.
He goes, what a great idea. He goes, where are we going to go eat? I got him out of his bad mood.
Yeah. I think I saw on MLB Network maybe that they were going to show that game sometime this week. With
Oh, is
no
that
other-
Yeah,
right?
they
no
showed
other
it last
sports.
night.
Oh, was it
last
last
night?
I
night?
think they showed
Okay.
it last night. Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't see it.
But yeah, so I mean, obviously, a lot of Kansas City fans are interested in that game. So
Right at the end of that game, you'll see a videotape of me walking into the dugout, and George is still in the dugout after they called him out for the Pine Tar home run, and I'm carrying a catcher's glove.
He's like,
oh wow, I'll have to go back and look at that and see if I can check that out. Couple more things here, to talk about. What are some important traits that you learned through the game of baseball?
That no matter how bad it's going, you can make it a little bit better if you just are patient and you adjust. The only constant that I can see in baseball as a player for me was change. You have to change. You can't stay the same. Even Tiger Woods changed his golf swing, right? So baseball players have to adjust and change. If something's not working for you, choke up. Hit the ball. Try not to take a stride. Try just to hit it with your hands. I learned that if you're not a player that can adapt and make changes, you're not going to succeed, because the only way you can get past your problem is to do something about it. And if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to have the same result. And as a coach, you know this, Gary. You tell that to your players. But that's what I learned. And in fielding, if I don't get a good jump off that grounder, if I don't catch the ball off the bat as soon as possible, it's going to eat me up. So I give out tips to younger players about how to be a better player, and one of my tips is the only way to eliminate bad hops is to catch them. And the only way to get rid of bad hops is to catch it before it gets a bad hop, or get ready for the bad hop. See it coming. So those are things that I learned. And then how to get along with teammates. I'm not saying to be a psychiatrist or a pat a guy on the back all the time, but learn how to understand another guy's problem and pain. Be compassionate as a player, and root for your player. Be happy when your teammates do well. Don't be jealous that a teammate's doing well and you're not. And then don't take it out on anybody. Don't blame the coach. Don't blame the umpire. Don't blame your dad. Don't blame your mom. Just get out there and have a good time playing.
Well, and that's a life lesson, too, what you just said. I mean, when in work, you've got to get along with coworkers, right? You need to be happy and joyous for them, too.
Yeah, we actually, had a situation last year. My daughter had a teacher. She was in 7th grade, 8th grade now, but she had a teacher she didn't really like, she didn't click with. And, I had that conversation with her. Hey, I've had coworkers, I've had teammates that maybe aren't my favorite people, or that I didn't want to necessarily be around. But, hey, sometimes in life you're just going to have to suck it up and deal with it.
we're a co-host
And figure it out.
a co-host on a podcast.
Yeah, or a co-host on a podcast.
Let me tell you a quick story that didn't make my book.
Okay.
Because it just goes right into what you're saying. When I signed a professional contract in '71, I got sent to the New York Penn League, rookie league, and I was playing third base in the first game of a doubleheader. And for some reason, the ground was soft over there to my left, and the ball hit a soft spot and went underneath my glove. Well, my manager, took offense that I wasn't playing aggressive enough. So right before the second game of the doubleheader, we're all waiting for him to read the lineup out, and he gets to the ninth hitter. And I was expecting him to say Pryor third base, but he said, "Hey, Rich, our backup catcher, I want to watch you at third base this game." And he looked right at me and he goes, "Pryor, you can take your uniform off, and I don't care where you go." Right in front of the whole team.
Wow.
So I was crushed because I had been an All-American at Florida Southern, and I didn't know if I had enough ability to advance in the minor leagues. But here my first manager was telling me to take it off and get lost. So I wrote that story. I was going to put it in my book about how sometimes you overcome objections to coaches and managers. And I found my manager. I can't mention his name right now because it's not in the book. I sent him the story. I said, "I want you to read this story, and I want you to tell me if you'll approve it for my book." I didn't write a Ball 4 book. I didn't cut people down in my book like Ball 4. But I sent it to him, and he calls me back, and he goes, "Greg, that never happened. I never said that to you." And I'm thinking, yeah, you did,
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, oh, Greg, are you going to put that in the book when he really doesn't want you to? So I cut that chapter out of my book. because I went online and he has a daughter, and I didn't want his daughter thinking that I was cutting him down for doing that to me back then, because stuff like that, as a coach, your players are going to remember some of the things you say, maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe it's good, but hopefully it's good.